everybody, this is your friend Darren Iman, the master of shenanigans. I'm just waking up. Yesterday I went and I ran some errands. It is another swelteringly hot day in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. We are going through a crazy heat spell right now. I bought myself, I have a little one of those e-bikes. Lets me zip all around town and it also helps keep me cool. So yesterday I ran around on that bike. It's hard to try and find things that are open, what with the pandemic and everything. And I went and I bought some things that I need, and I just kind of figured that I would shoot a quick video to show you how a guy like myself, who has been working as a commercial artist and as a magician for 20 plus years, how I get by with basically a shoestring budget. For, as you can imagine, the term starving artist is not just a cliche, and we have to learn to do what we can with what we have. So I'm going to do a quick tour of things that I bought, tools of my trade yesterday, how much I spent. It's like literally about $10. Got everything I needed, and then I'm going to release a how-to video. So let's get started. So I went to Value Village and I found a box of it was like $30. They're selling it for $6. Tent making equipment, and here it is. This was how to build a tent for kids. It came with these rods and like this plastic dowel and these joiners, and the whole idea is you build tent structures and throw a blanket over it and you've got a tent for it. And what I did is I took a pair of scissors, I trimmed them down to what I want, and this is now an overhead camera display. So now I can shoot videos from an overhead. It cost me $6. It's not hard, you know, metal or aluminum or whatever they're normally built with, and I'm going to be hanging this video camera from here, probably with some tape, and I'll probably feel like there's a Damascus sword hanging over my head that's going to follow me anytime. And you know, just to show you how efficient that is, it just broke as I'm shooting this video. But that is cool because now I know to put some epoxy in there, and this is all going to work. The other thing that I did is I went to Dollarama and I got myself, I already made it here, but I bought myself one of these, I don't know what you would call them, they're like child safety gates, and they collapse and then they fold out across an entire like doorway like we have here, and it keeps animals and pets or kids from crossing a certain point. And I took a pair of scissors and I trimmed it and I cut it, and again this cost me about $1.50, and I made a parallel ruler, which generally run about $50 plus, plus you have to order them, costs a ton of money. But the whole idea here is that when I'm illustrating something, I can draw straight lines. So as long as I hold this to the base, I can use this as a ruler, draw a straight line, and then just come up and 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 up, and this will consistently create parallel lines without, it's just a really, really big time saver. Of course, because it is cheap plastic, the lines won't be perfect, so I'll have to clean them up later, but I saved $60, so that is another thing I did. And then as I was cruising around, I came up with some, bought some magic stuff. So over at Value Village, magician can never have too many decks of cards. I got all of these in a packet for about $1. And they're not, like generally if I'm performing card magic, I'm going to want to use Bicycle, which come at about $4.99 for a deck. These cost me $0.25 each. And the thing about decks of cards like this, little novelty decks with animals and stuff on them, is they're not really what you want to use for nice cardistry effects. But if I'm doing a card trick where I say, sign the back of this card or something like that, which obviously stands to reason would ruin the deck, I'm always going to use these cheap ones. I always carry them around with me, or even like tear this card into pieces, lots of different effects like that. Fold the card into 4, hide it, in my pocket or something like that. I'm going to use cheap decks that I know I'm going to destroy. So I always have a bunch of these lying around, and I picked these up for $1 in a plastic bag at Value Village yesterday. And Where do I keep all this stuff? Well, this whole treasure trunk here at the base is full of magic supplies, and then at the top is all decks of cards that I collect. Moving over to the closet, I've got 2 magic bags here. These are just ready to go stuff that at a moment's notice, if I get hired for a show or if someone calls me and it's like, hey, can you come down here and do some magic, I've got prep bags ready to go. So there's always extra decks of cards in there, plus, you know, stuff that if I'm going to do a half an hour show, the most reliable the most reliable tricks, effects that I really like, that I really enjoy. Coming into here, this whole top drawer of the dresser, as well as this whole top drawer of that dresser, is also full of magic supplies. I really need to get a bigger place, but who can afford it? And speaking of who can afford things, I'm gonna get onto my teacher trick here, and this kind of goes to these seashells that I found. I was at the Dollar Tree and I found these packs of seashells, and let's see here, it says how much should I pay for these? Is there a price on them? There's no price on them, but they're at the Dollar Tree, and seeing as there's no price, my incredible deductive skills will tell me that I likely paid about $1 for them. So I'm going to show you a really cool magic effect that you can do with seashells, and also the trick that I'm going to show you is called the matrix. And there are many, many, many different variations of it. I'm going to show you with seashells. Then I'm going to let you use your imagination and try different effects. So let's set up the camera here on my overhead. I guess I'm going to have to epoxy that, but we'll get onto that right away. And we are back. I didn't end up using the overhead projector. I just set this up on a mini tripod here, this camera, and I think this will work for what we need. So without further delay, let's get into this. Our seashells, these can be found at any craft store. Or at the Dollar Tree at the Cambrian Mall in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Jesus Christ, what do they tie this with? Some kind of hemp? Are these real, or are these some kind of porcelain? I think these are real. I think someone actually goes out and picks all of these up. That's kind of cool. Okay, so I have these seashells here. So what I'm going to do now is one of my favorite magic effects known as the matrix. There's all kinds of variations of it. I'm just going to use these seashells that I picked up, and then we're going to really get into how this trick works. I'm going to be teaching how to do it, other methods. But for now, here is the performance. It's a teleportation effect. And in fact, let's start with these 2 over here. All we got to do is cover them up and 2 teleport over to my bottom right. Let's move over to here, cover them up, and once again we have 3. Let's move over here, cover them up as best we can, and if this works, we will have all of the seashells have transported over to the bottom right. And let's get into how this is done. This is a great effect. I use seashells simply because it makes it easier for the classic palm. Now, what is a classic palm? There's 2 methods that make the matrix possible. One is the classic palm, and the other is lapping. And these are great techniques that if you learn them, you will be able to devise all kinds of magic effects for yourself. So the classic palm, let's get into that. The secret behind this effect is that I have a 5th seashell. Now the classic palm, I have some coins here just to show you. When I first got started in magic, going back about 20 years now, I can remember walking around the streets of Montreal with a coin classic palm. So this is your classic palm, and the idea is that if your both hands are just natural, you should not be able to tell which hand is holding the coin classic palm. Now there's all kinds of advanced moves you can do, like there's the muscle pass from a classic palm. There's all kinds of different controls using the classic palm. The variations are endless, but the real mechanic behind this is just learning how to hold a coin or a small object into this little nook of your hand like this, putting just enough pressure to keep it in place, but not enough that your hand looks all crooked. It just has to be enough to hold it in place. And so I picked up seashells for the matrix effect just because it is incredibly easy to put your hand over this and have it come right up into classic palm. It's just very, very simple to do. It's almost like nature made these just to sort of fit right there. Now I used to have, I don't have it anymore, but I practiced the classic palm so much that I used to have this bruise, almost like a scar, right here in the palm of my hand that was a half circle, and this was from having a coin constantly pressed against it. So generally, anywhere you saw me walking around, you could say, "Hi, hey Darren, how's it going?" And I would say, "Hey, how are you?" And I'd always have a coin palm. That was just a practice. So let's get into this. The classic palm, we would just have one seashell palmed like this, and again, we're using seashells just because they're very, very easy to palm. This is a very simple trick. You should be able to watch this and go out and perform it practically right away, even without a lot of experience with the classic palm. It's just very, very simple for it to fit in there. And all I'm going to do is, when I point to 2, I will deposit one of the shells, classic palm the other one, and then lift up, and it looks as though the transposition happened. Same thing here. I will come over. This is now classic palmed. Come over, place down, lift up. Again, it seems like the transposition happened. All I did is palm the other one. Finally, the last one comes over here. This gets dropped. This gets palmed. I look up, and bam, this is now, it has all happened. Of course, now I have the evidence here. I want to end what magicians call, I want to end clean. Now, how can I end clean if I have this 5th seashell? I have to get rid of it somehow, and this is what is known as lapping in the magic community. Now, I know a lot of people will say, wait a minute, aren't magicians forbidden to give away the secrets? I'm just going to take a brief aside here, a brief digression, and explain that this is true if, for instance, if I'm performing a show and someone comes up to me and says, "Wow, how did you do that?" Generally, the answer I always give is the one I got from James Randi, the Amazing Randy, which is very, very well, I thought. That's the answer I always give. Someone says, "How did you do that?" Very well, I thought. I don't give away the method if I'm doing a show, because if I'm doing a show and I perform a minor miracle and someone comes up to me and says, "Wow, how does that work?" If I show them how it's done, it kind of takes away from it. It takes the wind out of the sails. It's like, oh, now it's not that cool anymore. However, I will teach magic because that's different. Teaching is not the same as revealing. Revealing a method is, the person that you're revealing it to has no interest in actually performing magic. They just want to know the secret. But if I'm teaching something and you are watching this at home and you decide, hey, I'm going to go out and perform this, then great. So the next little bit of the next technique I'm going to be teaching you for this is called lapping. So like I said, I want to end clean. I have this 5th seashell here. I need to get rid of that. I did it in the demonstration earlier by shifting my chair. Now, as lapping, the name suggests, you probably figured it out by yourself, means you would just drop this in your lap. Now, it seems simple, and of course it is. And in magic, that's the great thing, is that the simplest moves are often the best. If I'm going to do something incredibly elaborate in order to get rid of this, then people are going to notice. But if I just do something as simple as dropping it in my lap, which is just a casual thing where I might just move my chair, that's something you would expect to see. It doesn't stand out. It's something that people do all the time while sitting in chairs at a restaurant. They'll adjust their seat. It's not a complicated move out of the ordinary. And at this point, if I stand up, obviously it's going to fall, but if I get up just like this and I stand up, I can put that in my back pocket. I can do it down the line, whatever. The point is that you end clean. So that is lapping, and that is palming. Now, we have covered the matrix, but what I want to do is, rather than just end the video right here, I think that the best part about magic is coming up with your own routines. So this is just the matrix as you would see anyone perform it. Now, the cool thing about a lot of the effects of magic, even the classic ones, such as the cups and balls or the linking rings, is that no two magicians will do it the same way. Magic is a performance art. And you can learn the basics. You can learn how to, much like illustration. as a painter, as an illustrator, I can learn perspective, I can learn the rules behind 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective. I can learn all the different techniques, but ultimately it's going to be my own expression. And magic is the same way. So now that you've learned how to classic palm, you've learned your basic lapping technique, the whole idea is just to take this and to come up with your own variations. Believe me when I tell you that just those two moves, palming and lapping, are used in so many different magic tricks, you wouldn't believe it. So let's just cover some of the basics of the matrix. The matrix can be done with coins. And the same idea applies, where you would have another hidden coin. I'm going to run through this very, very quickly because this is something where I don't want to do an in-depth tutorial. It would kind of defeat the point. I want you to just see it, get inspired, and say, okay, cool, I'm going to mess around with that and come up with something my own. So here's the idea. We've got our 4 coins, again, classic palm. And it's kind of impossible to classic palm a coin. So what I would do is I would just cover these up and just slide my hands across. Slide my hands across. And I just say, look. And in the act of cleaning up, I've lapped one of the coins. That's a great matrix effect. The effect can be done with cards. And we're going to use my cheap Value Village cards here to illustrate the point. So now here is something that I won't need a really expensive bicycle deck or a tally-ho deck or something like that. I can use, what are these? Stars and Stripes Vodka. There you go. Stars and Stripes Vodka has its own very inexpensive deck of playing cards. You learn something new every day. And the idea here is the same thing, the same variation of the matrix, except this time I'm going to be holding my coin underneath one of the cards. And no, I don't need 4, I only need 2. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, okay, we're going to cover these 2 and look. We're going to cover these 2 and look. We're going to cover, these over here and look. Bam, that's the matrix. Now lapping in this case is actually really the easiest out of every single one of them, because by holding a coin underneath a card, it creates a perfect wall. One card, show it to the audience, and that is has been lapped. So, and you probably already figured it out. What I'm doing is just dropping one and picking up another. So again, I'm going to stop there. I'm not going to go into a super in-depth tutorial about this. What I want you to do is I want you to grab a bunch of coins, go to the store, buy some seashells, buy anything. This can be done with any 4 objects. If you're sitting at a restaurant and someone asks you to do an impromptu magic trick, you're not going to say at a dinner at a restaurant, you're not going to say, sure, hand me those seashells. They're not around, they're not there, but you might be able to say, hey, hand me a couple of french fries or whatever, and you should be able to do this. Whereas if you're absolutely crippled by the instructions behind a magic trick, you might not think outside the box. You might just be like, oh, that's a trick that's done with seashells, that's all it is, and you move on. Lapping is done for that specific trick, the matrix, and it doesn't have any applications anywhere else. And this is cathartic to a good magician. A good magician should be thinking about how to do magic with anything using the principles that he knows, whether it's a pen cap. If I have a bunch of these lying around, I can do a classic palm with a pen cap. I can, do any kind of effect. So take what you've learned here, go and practice with coins, with cards. I highly recommend practicing your basic palm with something like a seashell or even like a larger coin. You can go and get like an American $50, practice with that, and just experiment. So now we've got you started with the matrix. I'm planning on shooting a bunch of these videos, so hopefully by tomorrow or next week I'm going to come up with a new effect. And if you decide that you want to follow me, click on the follow button underneath and you can learn all the tricks of the trade, how to do it cheap and easy. So that's it for me today. Thanks, guys. I also went to Spencer's Gift Shop in the Station Mall, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and I found, what does this say? Mysterious smoke from nowhere. Magic smoke. And I know I can do something with this, so I was going to just store it somewhere until I come up with an idea, but for the sake of this video, let's open this up and see what we get. Okay, mysterious magic smoke. I know I'm going to be able to do something cool with this. I'm already thinking about how this would work for vanish. Mystic smoke from fingertips. Remove cap. Pierce tube with end of cap. Place a small amount on your thumb. Rub thumb and first two fingers together. Snap your fingers apart and make a throwing motion with your wrist. A cloud of smoke will appear. That sounds too good to be true for $3.99, but we're going to put this to the test right now. Okay, opens up like crazy glue. I'm going to place a large amount on my thumb, because I'm a rebel. Alright, next. Rub thumb and first two fingers together. There's these two. Snap your fingers apart and make a throwing motion with your wrist. A cloud of smoke will appear. I don't know if I'm rubbing too much or too little. And if anyone makes a "that's what she said" comment, you will be deleted. Just kidding, that type of behavior is encouraged. Snap your fingers apart and make a throwing motion with your wrist. A cloud of smoke will appear. Okay, it's starting to burn now, so let's see what happens. Gnarly. Alright, so you got little wispy tendrils of something. Not exactly a big burst of smoke, but for $3.99, what did I expect? That's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to definitely be able to figure out something to do with this. It smells awful, though. It smells like epoxy. For those of you who don't know, epoxy actually smells really good, but they add some kind of chemical agent to it in order to make it smell putrid, so that children and people like myself with the same mentality won't eat it. Okay, so there you go. Mystic smoke from fingertips, $3.99, Spencer's Gifts, and there's so much in here. This is like a lifetime. I don't know if this has expiry date, but I am definitely going to come up with something with this. I don't know what yet. I'm not going to sit here and come up with it now because we would be here all day, but I'm going to come up with something cool, some type of card trick, some type of coin trick where I can just do a cool little vanish, maybe in conjunction with pyro. Great magic wrist prop that shoots fire from my hand, maybe a little after smoke. I don't know yet, but I'm going to come up with something cool with this, and I'll post it on here. For now, I'm going to go wash my hands.